There is a saying, they say, great things are done when men and mountains meet. This is not done by walking on the street.
So, fasten your seatbelts, as today we're going to take you on a journey full of thrill, adventure, and mystery. So I'm your host, Pratima Jaswal, and this podcast this episode is going to be one of the most exciting and serious episodes of our podcast. As today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Tarun Anand, who is the founder of our college. But today we are not here to about his excellence in corporate journey. Today we are here to discover another side of Tarun, sir, that is of a mountain. So welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving your valuable time to us. We would love to know your views and insights about the topic. How are you, sir?
Excellent. It's a beautiful topic, very passionate about it, so delighted to speak about it.
As we all know that you have keen interest towards the mountain, and your love for mountain depicts in the name of our classroom. So what was that thing that made you fall in love with mountain?
So, it started at a very young age. Probably when I was 7 or 8, I probably was part of Duke of Edinburgh award scheme, which made us climb all the mountains in the Western Ghats in Maharashtra. And so literally every peak you see here has been climbed. We used to do these 3-day treks. And each of them was fascinating because one is you see the nature at its untouched best. Secondly, it tests you in terms of your abilities, your stamina, your entire ability to take yourself up. In those treks, we used to be self-sufficient. So when we would go 3-4 days on these treks, you would carry a 25 kg haversack with your own stove, with aloo, pyaz, everything. You would do your cooking on your own. You would sleep in tents or in the open air and in your sleeping bag. So it was a complete great exposure at a very early age. That got me excited, and I was very privileged to have gone all the way and completed my gold medal at the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme, which gets awarded at the Buckingham Palace. Then I took that further when my father took me first to Mount Kanchenjunga Base Camp. This was during my graduation. And because I became an assessor of the DEAS, I then used to take students up to these mountains. So I've taken hundreds of kids because the joy which I experience, the sheer beauty that I experience, the sheer peace I experience when there is a saying, they say, great things are done when men and mountains meet. This is not done by walking on the street. So while you're challenging yourself, you're one with nature because the mountain, as they say, you don't know what's going to be there at every turn. And that's the beauty of it. So I did that. I was an assessor, managed to train a lot of kids on how to do trekking. Then I went to Base Camp Kanchenjunga, which was a tough moment because that was the really serious mountain. We went up to 22,000 feet in that range, and that was the first time I was doing a serious expedition. It was great, except for the last part where your entire feet were completely drenched in blood because of the leeches which had got to you, and completely were, just blood oozing from every part of your feet. So when you opened your shoes, it was a disaster. But that was great. And then I challenged myself to do Mount Kilimanjaro, where I summited in 2005. That was a disaster experience, and I'll tell you a little bit more on that. And then finally, last year, I got to my dream of getting as close to Mount Everest and did Everest Base Camp. So my journey has been the heights you reach. It's all a personal, feeling of gratitude that you can be fit enough to get there.
So how do you prepare?
So, it's a very thorough process. There are 2 elements to it. One is your gear. So you make sure you have all elements of your gear, and we have a proper, list, and everything should be there. Recently on my Everest Base Camp, we had a situation where the weather wasn't good, and I had to walk. We took off in a helicopter. The weather wasn't good. We had to do a not a crash landing, but like a emergency landing in some random hill. It took off again. Again, we had to do an emergency landing. So we were way behind where we should have been on that day. And that day was, by then it was afternoon by the time with the weather. And so the pilot said we can't go any further. Now we're stuck on a hill. We've got like 4 hours behind where we should be, and we have to catch up because we've already lost one bad day due to the weather. That's the time you have to do, and it was raining, it was pouring, and you had to walk during the rain, and you needed to do night walking in the Himalayas, in the Everest Base Camp region. And it is not easy, so I just realized I had a lamp, a headlamp on my thing, but it wasn't that powerful because it was just not good enough for the trekking and the kind of terrain that we're going, because you're just going uphill. And so thankfully I met a New Zealander who was with me who had a very good lamp, and I just stuck with that New Zealander because I didn't have the right gear. So gear is very, very important. Second is your fitness, and this I learned after my disaster at Kilimanjaro, which I'll talk about. But I said you got to be physically fit. So I did a regimen of 4 to 5 months before. What should I do to get myself fit? So it involved every day a different routine. So either I would do 2 hours of cycling, I would do an hour of running non-stop, or I would do free exercises, whether it was pull-ups, try to get up to 15 pull-ups, which is damn tough. I would do 250 push-ups. I would do a 20 to 25 minute plank to get my core and my entire body ready, and all the other freestyle exercises. So it was one after the other, these 3 things. And therefore, when I went to, when we were attempting Everest Base Camp, I was the fittest I was ever, which was barely a year ago. It was great that I was able to not only keep up, but ahead of the group. And in a very relaxed, I reached every point where I was completely in control. So yes, firstly you got to do your physical readiness, get the right gear, and then the mental readiness, because the mountains are challenging, as Kilimanjaro did teach me, and therefore you have to be mentally positive that no matter what, you're going to give it the best shot you can.
That's crazy. And the way you explained every single detail, I was just like imagining that those things are happening in front of me. So as the concept of our podcast revolves around mysteries, so during an expedition, have you ever encountered any unusual experience, or have you heard about any stories from the localites there about the mountains?
Yeah, each mountain comes with its sheer sense because of the magnitude and the hugeness of these wonderful creatures. There is always some stories. So in Kilimanjaro, the myth of Kilimanjaro is that it's easy because it's 19,000 feet, you can reach to the top. But what is shocking is 50% of the climbers don't reach, because it's a very tough, arduous thing with high mountain altitude hitting in and sickness, which I encountered. So it's really, really tough, and many people just can't do it. The other thing about mountaineering is that you always say, okay, you've done the mountain because you've reached the top, right? You've summited. I think now these 50% who don't, in life, there are going to be challenges where some you will surmount, some you won't. And I always think that the mountains give you a real test because, as I said, it's unexpected what can happen to you, whether it's the weather, whether it's your own body, whether it's the crew, whether it's your gear. Things will change, and you've got to learn through that and adapt and be flexible to say, okay, I'm going to take it at every turn. So the concept is not just about summiting, but learning from that so that you go back. And that's what I did. I had such a tough time in Kilimanjaro that I prepared myself for 4 months because I also had this myth, Kilimanjaro should be easy. It was 2005, 17 years ago when I was more younger, fitter. And therefore I thought, ye to ho jayega. So I used to be based in London, so I used to run in Hyde Park for 15 minutes and I'm ready. I was not ready. I was completely out. And so the mountains teach you that, go back, get your learnings and come back. There are myths of, in the Himalayas, there are many, many myths. Of course, Everest being the most people, there have been 3 different times in over the last 100 years where Mount Everest has been measured, and all 3 different times it's got a different number. So the height is not yet, 29029 is what they say, but they know it's not accurate because someone has said 50 years ago it was 29008. Then later they did 29036. So that's a myth that the Everest is not yet, we don't know the exact height, even though we are in the 21st century. The other interesting myth of the Everest is that, it was summited by, Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary in the 1950s, I think 1953. But there is, before that in 1924, there were 2 gentlemen, George Mallory and Irvine, and their body wasn't found for 75 years. And after 75 years, they found it 800 feet below the summit. So nobody knows whether they actually summited and then fell, or did they not even reach the summit. So there is the thing that was someone summiting Everest before this happened. So that's an interesting thing. There is many, many more mysteries I'd love to talk to you about.
Sure. So this one mystery which I was very excited about is Yeti. What we know is that Indian Army found a large footprint of a creature who's supposed to be Yeti. So have you heard any stories or have you encountered something related to that?
So, it's funny. My father actually said, he was a mountaineer in Kashmir in the Himalayas when he was trekking. He actually said he heard the Yeti. And it was quite amazing. And this was at very high altitude, snow all around. You couldn't see a person. He was the only guy there. And crazy, to go all up in a high peak on your own without any support, just with probably a bottle of water. And he was just going up and he could hear this huge sound coming. And he's like, looking around and he's like, there must be something there because it was such an unnaturally large sound. So, the mystery of the Yeti pops in that maybe there's some kind of animal or subhuman animal which is, chasing you and this thing. But to reduce the wonder to the fact, eventually I told him it was your breathing. You had run out of oxygen and therefore you were breathing in such a way that you could not imagine that those noises come out. So it was actually you. So I don't like to bust the myths, but this is my thinking about it. But I do remember the story.
That's crazy. And it's been years that this is not proven that was Yeti or not, but there are many stories that come with this topic. So what difficulties did you face what was the most difficult time or the difficult expedition you had in your life?
Mount Kilimanjaro. There are a few more. One was an interesting one, so I'll do very quickly in the Western Ghats here, where it was Chanderi Caves, a very tough hike which you have to climb steep waterfall. So you're just going through and the water is running. So it's very risky. No ropes, no protection. So you're very, very gingerly. So we got up to the top and we were completely spent, like completely dead. So we went up into the top and it was constant rain. This is during the monsoon season. And we couldn't find a place. Now you can't even sleep in your sleeping bag. So where do you do? So finally we saw a crack and we said, "Arey, cave mil gaya." So we entered the cave, and the cave, because it was raining, it was completely full of rats. This big rats, okay? So we went into the cave, moving all these rats on the side, which is crazy because normally you would jump when you see a rat, but we were desperate. We needed a place to stay the night. We put all these big rats, this big. I've never seen a rat so big. 3 of us were there. We sat, put our sleeping bags and said, let's go to sleep. We just need to get some hours because we were completely tired. In the middle of the night, we got up and there was Farooq and Ashfaq on my side, and one guy put his leg on my leg, and I say, "Hey, Farooq, leg hata." And what we did is, before sleeping, we put kachwa chak on our chest, because I said, I don't want the rat to be on my face. They were all over me, it's okay, but not on my face. So one kachwa, imagine you're sleeping like this with the kachwa chak going into your mind. Anyway, in the middle of the night, this happened. I said, "Hey, Farooq, pair hata." So he's like, "Mera pair nahi hai." Fine. I said, "Ashfaq, pair hata." He's saying, "Mera pair nahi hai." Then my eyes like, "Kiska pair hai?" So then I go up and I take my torch and I point, and there's this big python. Like, you can't see the front of it and the back of it. They're going in, it's literally like this tiny cave. So I can just see it. So I froze. I lost my leg. I couldn't feel it. And then I'm like, what? Like, get both of them. So we all get up, and guess what? We take out, in those days, there was Rambo. I don't know if you know, there was a movie called Rambo with Sylvester Stallone. And he used to have these Rambo knives. So all of us took off our knives with such small thing. Like, ye nahi chalega. So they kindly buckled up, said, "You don't move." I said, "I can't feel my leg. I'm dead." So they are standing like this, and we are with the torch like this thing. I don't know, it was for a good 20-30 minutes where I was like gone. And then the python slithered away and went. But that was a fun means crazy event. But I'll tell you more about Kilimanjaro. So I went up Kilimanjaro. First 3-4 days were perfectly fine. I was on the ball. And then higher altitude sickness kicked in. So I was having loose motions, and you're in the mountain. There's no tents. There's no place to stay. So whatever you put in, it goes out, right? So therefore, your loss of strength, because you don't have any calories to burn, it's all going out of your system. Deep headaches. So all of this was happening. Then what happened? Both my knees gave way. So my knees I had weak knees, but it really gave way to the point that they made some, these Sherpas who were with us in Africa, they made these two things like a crutch. So with two crutches, headache, nausea, vomiting, dysentery, which is all part of high altitude sickness, both my knees gone, I'm walking. I made it 3 days like that. This is the last day where we have to summit. So when you summit, you leave at, you go to sleep at 4 p.m. You get up at 9 p.m., 9:30, so you get 5-6 hours. You have a very light dinner with just carbohydrates to get you energy. And at 11 p.m., you start to summit. Now at 11 p.m. in the night, you're doing only night walking. Okay, you're walking, and you want to get on top of Kilimanjaro at 6 in the morning, where you can see the gorgeous, Kenya, Tanzania, the Serengeti. You can just watch it. It's just the most beautiful sight. So you get 7 hours to summit. And it's minus 20 degrees. So the cold is biting. It's minus 10, 20, 25 degrees. You're in your most heavy jacket. And I'm in crutches with no energy. And this is what I'm trying to do in crutches. So my team says, get back. Don't need to do it. It's okay. You 50% don't complete it. You're one of those 50%. It's not like 99 don't complete it and you're one. Tu agli baar train karke aaya. I said, no, this was an entire international bunch of people. So I said, no, I'm fine. I'm coming. So 11 to 2 a.m., 3 hours, I was on the ball. I was with them, slowing them down, but keeping up. At 2 a.m., I completely gave up. Completely. I'm sad to admit it, but my entire world just crashed. I'd lost consciousness and I let myself go. I just let myself go. I'm at the end of my energy, anything. I had nothing left in me, right? You just like close to fainting. You had just lost consciousness. You're just like, one of my guys, from Britain, he caught me, slapped me 3-4 times, shoved a chocolate in me, put me down and said, get to your senses. Then I got to my senses and I realized what I'd done. I just let myself go. And, on a peak, you let yourself go means end of story, right? He put me down and he said, he was the leader. He said, we are going, you can't keep up. You move backward. You go down or you're done. And I was like, yeah, because I just didn't have anything. So half an hour, 45, they left. They left one Sherpa with me to show me the way down, to help me down. So I was like half an hour, 40 minutes, I just waited. And then I told the guy, I said, I want to walk 5 steps in the direction of where they. If I can't, we'll turn around. At any point I can't, I will turn around. No, you've been inside. No, you can't. I can't take you. And I gave him $100 and I said, boss, take me 5 steps. 5 steps, 5 steps, 5 steps, 5 steps. I reached short of the summit. And these guys have already summited at 6 a.m. because they got there on time. They spent 40 minutes on the summit. They're coming down. So it's now 9 a.m. 9 or 10, I think 9 or 10 a.m. And there's only 2 hours window to summit, because after that the winds go, the weather changes, you just can't. It's not advisable, it's very unsafe. So I've passed that 2 hour window and these guys have summited and coming down and they see me and they're like, are you mad? Like, you were supposed to be back in the final camp, which was again on a hill like that. So they're saying, Sardar hai, pagal hai, like madman. So you just, how, why, what? I said, no, just now I'm there. Now I can summit. I can see. Now by then so they just gave up and they just went their way and they reached the camp at 2 p.m. Right? Now I must have summited at around 10:30, 11ish I must have, which is very risky thing to do, because there's a window of 6 to 8. You don't do it. I was 3 hours after the window. I summited, took a U-turn, went down. Now my knees are gone, finished. So I used to see any patch which was safe, I would roll down. So that much 4 steps I don't have to walk on my knees, because coming down there's much more power on your knees. So you're like dead beat, nothing in you. So I'd roll down, sit, then roll down, sit, roll down, sit. So I was literally going like this, coming down a mountain. Finally, I reached the camp at 7 p.m., 5 hours after them. Camp is pitch dark. I can see they are in a tent, having their dinner, celebrating, having some a good time. They're singing, just all of them. And I'm seeing I've reached. I'm again tired, but I want to go and tell them I've also reached. So it's dark, pitch dark. And I'm walking up and I fall while going. It's minus 30 degrees at this point, minus 20 degrees. I fall, I break my femur. The most difficult bone in the world you can break, right? So it's broken. I don't know it's broken, but I was in pain and I'm shouting. They can't hear because they're a little far away, right? At least 60, 70 meters away from our tent. And I'm stuck there and I can't get up. There's nothing. They are not even. So 1.5 hour in the cold and just like in sheer pain, just cuddled up, like trying to conserve my heat because it's so cold. You can't be out, right? And then they finish their dinner and they walk back like probably at 9 p.m. or so, 1.5 hour. That seemed like a lifetime. I thought I'm going to freeze to death or I'll die out of the pain. I don't know, one of the two. They saw me, they're like, what is wrong? They picked me up, took me to the tent and they said, okay, now you're like next morning emergency, because now I've broken my foot. There's no way I can even walk. So there is something called Kilimanjaro ambulance. So they put a piece of wood, make me lie on the piece of wood, tie me tightly to that piece of wood. Put a wheel, I don't know where they found the wheel, but they must have as a backup, a wheel. This is your thing. They tie me, they blindfold me, and I was wearing, some music. They said, you put on your music. So I remember, and then they take you down. Why do they blindfold you? Because it's so treacherous that if I see something and I get little scared, they can lose their balance and all 2 or 3 of us can die. So they took me down that entire Kilimanjaro slope. And I so distinctly remember I was listening to Chaiya Chaiya at that time. While I'm going down the mountain, I reached Kilimanjaro, which is the village of the mountain. I was I just blindfolded. Imagine you're going and, I knew also. It's in my advice to not move, because I know these 2 guys, I will jeopardize them and they will probably leave me. So, chupchap se, I reached the hotel, the camp at the village. In the village, there was nothing. I put painkillers, wasn't working. So then there is something beautiful called Kilimanjaro beer. So I had, I think, 17 bottles as painkillers, and then waited. Then they said you have to fly to Kenya for because this place doesn't have. So you have to go to Nairobi for your surgery. I said no, I'll fly back to London. So that is the horrendous story. of Kilimanjaro, which even now haunts me. But that learning made me so good for Mount Everest, it's not funny. But I was afraid. Before I was going to Mount Everest, I was actually, that was the last mountain I climbed 18 years ago. Now my bones are even, less. But that prepared me.
That's great. When we talk about mountains, the localites or the normal, they have some fear, like in horror movies, in any Bollywood movie we see. So we talk about paranormal stories, we talk about horror stories. So have you encountered something related to that, or have you heard by someone that this is the thing that is going on here, and that came to be a myth like you mentioned about the Yeti?
I'm sorry, I'm a big lover of mountains. I don't think there's anything scary except the gorgeous beauty. When you're at Everest and you see Mount Lhotse, all these, 8,000 meter peaks, it's just serene, beautiful. That moment when you reach Everest Base Camp, you break down because it's just such a lot of emotion. It's just stunningly beautiful. There's nothing scary except that the scary is the fact that you got to be prepared. That's what it tells you. Be prepared in life.
That's great, sir. Like, as I mentioned earlier, you were the best person we could talk to and clear doubts about this topic, that is mysteries of mountains. Thank you so much for giving your valuable time, and the stories which you shared with us, the interaction was so lively that I kept on listening, and I'm sure that our audience will be thrilled about knowing what your experiences are. Thank you so much, sir, and I would love to have more conversations about the same topic later on.
Sure. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks.